With the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan, what security officials and analysts feared the most appears to be coming true already. The rise of terror groups reinvigorated after Taliban's victory. Foreign terror groups enjoy greater freedom in Afghanistan than at any time in recent history. And with that, living conditions of Afghan women have deteriorated drastically. When the Taliban group came to power in August last year, women television journalists and other professionals were asked to leave and stay at home. Human rights activists who spoke against the rule were killed or disappeared without trace.
Afghanistan has once again become a hotbed of terrorism after the Taliban takeover. A UNSC report a few months back revealed that Al-Qaeda retains a presence in Afghanistan in the provinces of Ghazni, Helmand, Kandahar, Nimruz, Paktika and Zabul, where the group fought alongside the Taliban against the ousted government. The report also claimed that slain Al-Qaeda leader Osama bin Laden's son visited Afghanistan last year. It further revealed that Amin Muhammadul Haq Sam Khan, who coordinated security for bin Laden, returned to his home in Afghanistan in late August last year. The Taliban, which often refers to the Islamic State of Khorasan as its worst foe, while in reality, the two organizations work together to foment terrorism in Afghanistan. According to the report, Islamic State Khorasan or ISIS-K is recruiting fighters from the Eastern Turkestan Islamic Movement and the Turkestan Islamic Party, among other foreign terrorist groups. It aims to position itself as the chief rejectionist force in Afghanistan and to expand into neighboring Central and South Asian countries. Recently, the European Foundation for South Asian Studies, an independent think tank on South Asia, organized a conference, Situation in Afghanistan and Future Trajectories for the region and the West at the European Parliament in Brussels. Mr. Bashir Ahmed Gok, a renowned journalist, expressed his concerns on the situation of growing terrorism in Afghanistan after the Taliban takeover.
The Taliban takeover has encouraged other militant groups and they have encouraged extremists to go further and radicalize the youth as much as possible. The future of militant groups and how could the Taliban takeover of Afghanistan affect the wide region is also a very good discussion point to have at this point of time, because we have seen evidence that the Taliban are using the Islamic State of Khorasan as a blackmailing chip when they are talking to the international community. And they say, for example, if they are not there, the Islamic State will go on and they have a wider agenda and they will try to attack Europe and other countries like they have done before. So you should talk to us and you should give us money and you should recognize us, the Taliban are saying, that we are the ones who can control them.
Since the Taliban seized control of Kabul last August 2021, there has been a severe political crisis in Afghanistan, which has been accompanied by deteriorating living conditions for the country's women. A number of human rights activists, journalists, and critics spoke out against the killings and human rights abuses in the war-torn nation, particularly against the country's minorities. But their voices have been shut by the Taliban. Whole towns have been forcibly moved, and people who spoke out against the Taliban organization have been killed without a court order or disappeared without trace. Not only that, according to UN experts, there has been an upsurge in violence against women and girls, especially cases of underage marriage and trafficking of girls are on the rise. The all-male interim government is steadily erasing women and girls from public life in Afghanistan, including in institutions and mechanisms that had been previously set up to assist and protect those women and girls who are most at risk.
Taliban took over last year in August 2021. Hundreds of thousands of Afghans, mostly professionals and educated, were forced to flee the country, particularly women, in horror of reprisal against them. While the number of attacks against human rights defenders, women human rights defenders, journalists, and critics have been dramatically increased, and many of them were forced into confession by the Taliban simply for peacefully demonstrating or expressing their views in a very peaceful manner, and demanding their fundamental rights, particularly rights to education, rights to employment, and rights to political participation. In the past few months, the number of extrajudicial killings, enforced disappearances, arbitrary detention, and torture is at its highest, particularly against former members of the Afghan military forces who laid down their weapons and started a civilian life.
The Taliban group, whose leaders include several designated terrorists, seized control through force and is intended to impose its extreme ideologies on common Afghans. It is willing to reverse the modest advancements in gender equality and education that have been accomplished over the previous 20 years. Further, it has not demonstrated any sign of accommodating minority communities that are not Pashtun or Sunni. Yet the Taliban regime wants international recognition as a legitimate government of Afghanistan and wants the world's assistance to tide over its difficulties, including its devastating earthquake. The Taliban group must realize that just as the world is rushing to help with humanitarian assistance for this natural disaster, it can hardly stand by and watch a Taliban-made disaster unfold.